Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 35th episode of Tried and True, a podcast hosted by Delaware Warmachine. I am your host, Paul.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Erica.
It has been a while. I hope that you two are doing well. I'm glad we were able to make some time on a Wednesday night to debrief Nova and talk about some other fun stuff.
Hey, better late than never.
It's only been a month already.
Only a month. Real fast, everyone who's listening in, thank you so much for giving us your time to listen. Shout out to More Than Dice for giving us the platform to go ahead and share all the good stuff. And for all the patrons on Patreon, thank you for your continued support. Because of your support, we're able to have a slam dunk of a Nova weekend. And, we'll continue to drive the boat forward and make sure that we make the following years even better. So just to kind of give an idea of what this podcast episode is going to be about, we're going to go and just quickly talk shop about the Nova Open for 24. Erica does a really cool survey at the end of it, so we were just going to kind of like talk about what we saw and then what the survey results said. And the topic for today's podcast is actually all about feedback, so it kind of felt appropriate. And the goal is like talking about giving and receiving feedbacks as like TOs and players. And then at the end, we'll just talk about the future plans on what this feedback means for Nova 25.
All right, I'm excited. I'm excited for Nova 25. I feel like, not to jump ahead, but I feel like even on the car ride home and the weekend after, we were already starting to workshop ideas for next year.
I'm still tired.
I'm also tired.
Was it the same kind of tired that you had like the first years?
No, year one literally like took a year off our lives, I think. Like year one was bad.
We and
Not
it
the same
wasn't
kind of tired.
Yeah, it wasn't bad in the sense it's your expectations, right? And that was the first time our group had ever run a multi-day convention event. So we learned a lot, not just from our attendees, but from each other. We were tired, but it wasn't nearly as draining as last year. Like Andy said, I felt like we had years taken off of our life.
Well, I remember like how hoarse like our voices were by the end of it. I remember just because those are long days, like the setup and breakdown, and like there's a lot of moving parts that went into that. So I was like trying to mention earlier, I didn't have the opportunity to go to this Nova. So really, Erica and Andy are going to be taking the lead on talking about all the different events with there. So I saw here that you had a whole special things. Do you want to go ahead and give the shout outs to everybody that made Nova a success?
Yeah, before we get into the meat of this thing, our team, on behalf of our team, we wanted to thank everybody who made the journey out to Nova. It was really humbling and honored our team to see that room completely packed over the weekend, and everyone was having fun, and it was a great time. We had a few other content creators out there, including Battle Driven and Zero Camp. And then we also wanted to share a special thanks to Dan and Ice King for streaming, and a super special shout out to Jay and his team out of Norfolk, the Hampton Road Atlanteans. They hosted a narrative event on Friday. They brought their huge Scars wall, this amazing terrain, these gargantuans and colossals. It was awesome. And then we wanted to give a special thanks to Workbench Maniac for providing us some special 3D STLs that we were able to use for our narrative tables.
Let's go ahead and just quickly spitfire the different events. So we started off with the 2v2 and unlimited tournaments. How were the unlimited tournaments? How were they received?
So it was actually really cool. So we did something else that we did a little different this year. So we, in addition to the QR codes being available and printed out for Longshanks, we also had a QR code printed out for our tickets on tabletop events. So if players wanted to hop on and play in an event that wasn't full, it made it really easy for them just to get a ticket. 2v2, we had more teams this year, so the event was growing. And what we did, lessons learned last year, was we didn't want to have the same factions and armies on the same team, because that can be very, very strong. So as players were checking in, we asked them, hey, leave one of your warcasters up by registration on this cookie sheet. And then Andy went in and found, two random warcasters. We tried to keep one legacy, one Mark IV. And basically what Andy did was he paired off the armies based off of the warcasters that, were representing their lists. And that's how the players found out who they were paired with.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know or wasn't at Nova, we call it 2v2 with a twist. It's you don't know who your partner is until you're starting round one. So it's sort of it's a little icebreaker as our first event. It's never going to be the event that has the most tables running because it's Thursday, so it's people are still getting in for the weekend. So I think it's just a really fun way to start the calendar.
Yeah, and it was I like the Warcaster idea because this was like kind of cute and it was fun watching everybody walking around the tables trying to figure out where their model was. That was a lot of fun. We did 3 rounds. Yeah, 3 rounds of that. And then our winning team was a combination of Storm Knights, right? And House Callus.
Yeah, it was Stormlights
Yep.
in Dusk.
Yep. And then that night we rolled into our first unlimited tournament. So I want to give a special thank you, of course, to the all of our team members who came out. We had neighboring Meta, Dave from Portal, and David. They helped manage all of our nighttime events, which was something new that we introduced for this year. And what we found out with the unlimited at night or after dark, yeah, unlimited after dark, where people just wanted to keep playing Warmachine regardless if they were playing unlimited lists or prime lists, and it was just people wanting to essentially just play more games at night. But like Andy was saying, Thursday is typically our meet and greet icebreaker day, so we have more kind of I want to say casual, yeah, I guess casual events,
Fun ways to play the game.
fun ways to play the game.
And then you ended up keeping that same mentality of having night events going forward as well.
Yeah, so we had a day team, again, something that we learned last year because we were just run ragged after the weekend, was we needed more help, right? So we had more volunteers, and it wasn't just from our immediate group, Delaware War Machine, but from Maryland and PA to assist us. So we had a daytime crew and a nighttime crew.
Yeah, I think what we learned this year a little bit is that we may need a crew just for demos, I think.
Yeah. I guess we're gonna hit that a little bit later when we talk about the demo stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. How about we just hit like the Masters, your Steamrollers, and King Coin, like the other I guess like
Sure.
other events.
Sure. So that was Thursday. Friday was the Masters qualifier. We split everybody into pods. Per the tickets, before the tickets, we had a full sold out event, but of course, day of, sometimes people can't make that event, so we had to shuffle the pods a little bit. Went 3 rounds. We took the top 8 across all 3 pods, and that's what made our Masters for Sunday. Running alongside of that, we did a Friday steamroller. Because not everybody can make it to IG, or we just wanted to have an alternate tournament or format for people to play in. And that was something that we took from Seth and Steve, what they do at the Boker Brawl, where they have the big bounty brawl on Friday that runs alongside their IG.
Yeah, it's like something for everybody though. Like I think that that's a very smart choice because I think we've seen that is that not every single person wants to go do the super hyper competitive and play with like the big sharks, and they just want to go and get games in. So I think offering an opportunity for people to go play and probably even get like high level play games at that, they're still getting a good experience. They're getting the full con experience.
The strategy with doing the Masters and pods as well is you can keep everything to 8-man pods, so essentially you can guarantee a 3-round day. So everyone's not playing 5 or 6 rounds in a day. So they're waking up, playing the game when it's dark, and then they're going to bed and it's dark, and there's nothing in between.
Yeah, so that was when we were discussing the schedule and working out the itinerary. That was an important goal for our team to hit, where we wanted to limit. We had very few tournaments that went 4 rounds. I think King of Coin was probably the only one. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't starting super super early, but if at 3 rounds it allowed us to factor in a lunch break, and we were done the daytime events between, I want to say, 4:30 and 5:30 every
It
day.
was closer to 6 or 7 for
Or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But the idea for that is like we want to make sure that players have that our attendees have enough time to go get food, actually enjoy the like other aspects of the convention, go shopping. People travel with their wives, their husbands, their families, and it's DC. So I know when I'm in DC, I like to get out and walk around. So we just wanted to give our players a schedule where they could enjoy more than just Warmachine.
And then how did King of Coin end up going?
King of Coin went really well. We had, I think, 13 people I haven't gotten the 16 coins back. You know, we're close. We did a little bit better this year. King Coin was great. When I congratulate Eric Akers. He came in first, so I actually have his Orgoth coin with his initials is should be here in the next week or two. So we're gonna give him that at Sussy Scuff.
What did he change his name to? Tyrant of Coins? Is that what he is now?
Yeah, he changed his name on our
Okay.
Discord server. Yeah, so that was Saturday, and then Saturday we had oh wait, I'm gonna back up to Friday. Friday night we had the Siege of Scarswall with Jay's crew. So we ran narrative at night. Saturday was King of Coin. We had another steamroller that ran alongside of that. And who got Joe got the Prince of Pence this year, right?
I do not remember.
I
I
wasn't
think
there.
Yeah, I think Joe did, which is really funny because the prince is like more of a fanfare than the king, I feel like. So Taylor, Ice
He
King,
got a lovely crown.
he did. Taylor printed off this like sick crown. Oh, we didn't talk about the Chris Gunther Memorial Steamroller is what we named it on Friday. So for those that may not be in the know, our good friend Chris was getting married that weekend, and Chris loves Warmachine. He loves the Nova Open. He couldn't make it because he was getting married, which is a good excuse, right? So we wanted to honor him by we had a picture of him in a frame in the front of the room with some candles. And
Can you please just like share the story about the one gentleman that came in and is just like, is this a memorial for someone who like?
oh yeah, oh my yeah, I was so like, oh god, like time out. Oh, okay, first officer friend, he's okay.
It was very tasteful. It was very tasteful.
Yeah, it was a beautiful beautiful day. Oh, and then also with King of Coin on Saturday we ran the Delaware Warmachine narrative, and I will kick that over to Andy.
Oh, okay.
Did-
We did 2 rounds of the narrative. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. They were generally like 4-hour blocks each. Essentially, there was a little bit of movement, but we had full 10 for each one, which was great. Helped me with the balancing. I believe the defenders won narrowly in the morning, and the attackers won narrowly in the evening. The evening one, the city was burning to the ground. They were malicious. There were a couple really interesting plays that people decided to play around with our town. So our town had a bunch of buildings that you could interact with and do a whole bunch of stuff with. Or you could just decide to burn everything to the ground. Especially Justin Dew. He was committing war crimes every turn. That man had no chill.
When I just tuned into the stream for a little bit, and I'm just like watching the replay. It was like, where did the wall go? I turned away for like a little bit. And
that
the wall
was Jay.
disappeared.
Yeah, Jay made a game within a game where he was like, "I must tear the city wall down." So he literally he took it chunk by chunk. It was rather impressive. But yeah, narrative was a huge success. We had a lot of fun with it. I had a little speaker blaring some Gravedigger themes, when some Gravedigger surprises happened. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. Everybody playing it was
real fast. Did people like know? I know that other podcasts have mentioned it, but do we just want to do a quick recap of like actually what the story was and like what the?
Yeah, I think for recap, and then if Paul, you can go into a little bit of the creation of the table, and then I want to talk about David Lee's wall too, because he.
All right. I'll do the lore. Paul, you do the table. How's that? So essentially, the narrative is there is the town of Five Fingers is under siege by the Orgoth, represented by 5 of our attacker teams. It's being defended by 5 defender teams, all 50 points unlimited, whatever you want to bring. There are a total of 10 NPC trencher models that start on one side of a 4 foot by 4 foot. That's 3 4 foot by 4 foots all in a row, 2 of which are the city, and then the far one is the beach, essentially. The trenchers are trying to get to boats on the beach and out of the city. Everybody scores points based on NPCs that are alive at the end, and buildings that are burnt down by the attackers. So you kind of figure out the points towards the end. The attackers score points as the game goes on, and then the defenders count up all of what's left at the end, basically. Hidden among these 10 NPCs is Kane. He's the MVP who's trying to get the hell out of the town. If the attackers find Kane, he drops a flare, and then I blare the Helldivers theme, and the Gravediggers come down and try and rescue him, essentially. So the defenders get some bonus models, a little help towards the end. I believe the game. So we have to hard cap this at 4 hours. So I believe the first game went the full 7 turns, and then the second game ended around 6 turns, just because there was a lot of moving parts every turn. And I think the afternoon game we had a couple people who were playing, I think, for the first time, like moving models for the first time. So it was a lot of people helping everybody else out.
That's really cool. And one of the things that you were mentioning me off to the side, and was it Justin Dew that said like he'll go play narrative, and he's like, hey, there's a spot open up, and he's like, no, I'm gonna stay here.
Oh yeah, so for the steamroller on Saturday, we had an extra player, so there was a buy round. I'm like, oh, we'll just rotate the buy person on the narrative table. That way they can still play. So Justin got the buy, so he went over to play narrative, and then we go into round 2. I go to the table. I was like, okay, Justin, you ready to come back to play the steamroller? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm good here.
He had just burned down a hospital, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm committing war crimes.
Yeah, like this, especially the second iteration, it was the town of 5 fingers. It was like the town of 2 fingers by the time they were done with it. There was like nothing left on the table.
Yeah, I mean, like, just hearing that though, it was I'm just really thankful that Andy was able to put on a really good show. The original idea was that Andy and I were going to go work on it together. We were actually, we schemed it all together, coming up with the building designs, building roles, and everything. And the new kid, I wasn't able to actually come down for like parent duties.
But you were able to make a lot of stuff for the table. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So just as a quick recap, if you weren't aware, first Nova that I went to was 22. I remember seeing the tables, and the Warmachine tables were just sad compared to everything else, right? You look at the Lord of the Rings tables, the Warhammer tables, like everything just looks like so much flair, and you look at our stuff and everything is flat with like buildings with like not even like doors on them. It was not good. So like in 23, I wanted to make sure that we ramped up a lot of our tables. So that's how we made the Kador, the Signar, and the Ios tables for the narrative event. So we kind of already had a leg up. And then, this time around, I wanted to do a more cityscape and focus on 5 fingers. So what I ended up doing at the end of 23 was that I went to the one of the organizers for Nova and said, hey, can I like take these houses home and give them a facelift? So I was able to go and retexture them, give them a fresh coat of paint, and shout out to Workbench. He was able to go and create STL files for doors and windows because I can't model those to save my life. And he just made really, really amazing STL files that I was able to slap on to these pieces. And what was great is that between like a traditional insulation foam style cardstock, and then adding STL files on top of it, it actually looked like cohesive building pieces. And they a lot of different variety there. There was like a generic houses all over the place, but I think the one piece that I was really, really happy about was the giant inn, like the giant inn that like towered over everything else.
Yeah, you went a little overboard on the the number of floors on that one.
Why is it so big? I'm like, it's because it's big, it's chunky, it's the Iron Kingdom, everything has to be big. So I ended up doing that. We had a really cool terrain making night where I was able to have, and Andy, thank you for hosting that. We had people prime those houses, and we were able to go and make the docks that we needed for the day. And again, like tapping into your folks, your community people. Like I would not have been able to paint all this stuff, and I told Eric and Andy off the side, like I don't even think I could have been like close doing all this. So to everyone in Delaware, thank you so much for your help with that.
Sometimes you just need hands.
And
they don't have
ribs.
To be very skilled hands. Sometimes you just need
Yeah,
quantity.
It was also really cool that Nova trusted our group enough to take all that terrain back and refurbish it or give it the facelift, like Paul was saying. And it's cost effective for us because we're not starting from scratch on this terrain. We're taking older stuff and giving it some love. So that's another thing, like if you're trying to get into event coordinating, is see if you can collaborate with either that convention and upgrading the terrain that's there. That way you're not just starting from zero.
And the other thing, we haven't talked about this, and I don't know if it's in the cards, but whenever we decide to let go or pass Nova on to the next group, they at least have it in a better condition than what we had. Not to say it was like bad, but I mean, like, always trying to pay it forward. So, give the next person, a leg up and make sure you set them up for success.
Yeah, we're already starting our exit strategy for Over, but yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. We want to make sure that whatever group falls in behind us can be successful and yeah, just continue to grow it.
And one more thing I wanted to mention before, because we need to give a shout out to David Lee, but just one more thing, and was that Workbench Maniac. This wasn't part of the narrative tables, but the Scorn terrain. So, like, Scornland was something that I really wanted to make. Ended up getting the STL wall files, towers. I ended up, like, finding out how to make canyons and little ladders and stuff. And even to go back as so far as the old No Quarters, they had, like, these tent forest skins, and being able to make a bunch of those. And it was just really cool seeing people excited to go and play on those tables. And Erica, you gave me a very kind compliment where you said, like, whenever there was an open table, it's like, we want to go on the Scorn table. And it's just like, it feels very rewarding to see other people be able to enjoy the game.
What I really liked about that is it's really hard to, like, aesthetically have, like, line of sight blocking on a desert table that isn't like an obstruction, because forests don't usually make a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you have those tents that are just skinned forests, it's much easier to, like, design a table that works. That's not just a whole bunch of, like, obstructions, because you need obstructions on the line of sight blockers and stuff. So the tents help a lot, even if they are very fragile.
They are very, very fragile. Like, every single spear tip always breaks off of him. Like, it's fine. Just throw some super glue on it. It's fine. And then David Lee. So, Erica, can you go and talk about David Lee's awesome wall?
Yeah, so David Lee, he created the wall for us for the Five Fingers narrative. We tested the scenario at the brewery one night, right, with everybody, and version 1 of the wall was napkins. We just like laid napkins for the outline of the wall, and yeah, David took some measurements that night, and he made this really kick-ass wall that was multiple parts. So as parts were getting destroyed, we could remove that section. He had a gate with a little turn wheel to open and close the gate. He had some cranes up there that the like sitting up on the ramparts where players could interact with that terrain piece if they wanted to.
We had your painted cannons as well, Paul.
Yeah, we had painted cannons. Yep. So yeah, it was just a huge team collaborative effort. But
yeah, we needed to hit that wall, because, like, we didn't I don't. If David didn't make the wall, we were in trouble. We'd be scratching stuff together.
I mean,
can't take napkins to Nova, you know.
I saw the boats. Like, these are the 2 boats. I'm like, oh, those are. I was like, no, don't use those.
It's all right. Here, if it makes you feel any better, Paul, nobody got to the boats. It's fine.
I made those for the was it the second narrative thing of Black Tide. So just like, I didn't even finish them.
So funny thing on the boats, and I would give a little spotlight to Liam, because he had one of our highlights for narrative last year when he exploded the tanker and blew Iris up. He was down at the boats, and he had Kruger, and he's like, I'm just going to burn the boats. He was an attacker. He's like, I'm just going to burn the boats down so they can't escape. And I remember looking at Andy, I'm like, we didn't test that at the brewery. Like,
meanwhile, I'm like, don't tell him we didn't test that.
I was like, yep, I just didn't think what happened if someone would just burn the boats down. That's really smart.
I'd let him do it. I mean, he never finished, but, you know, it was on fire.
But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun.
It's like, lady, you don't let him peek behind the curtain. Just don't tell him you didn't test that. Be like, oh, very smart of you. Yes, roll your damage roll. Good.
Very clever.
Good job.
Very clever.
Yeah. All right. So let's go and actually talk about this setup and breakdown. So how did it change breakdown last year compared to this year, or setup from last year and this year?
Oh my God.
I see like a note right here. I'm like, what is this about?
Oh, it was night and day. So one of the differences from last year was we were upstairs at the like the main street level in the big room. The reason that we were moved downstairs was because Kings of War has this huge tournament that is done throughout the country, and it changes venues every year. So Nova had it this year. A bunch of players, so everybody had to negotiate space. So our compromise was, if we wanted to stay up in the big room, we would just be very limited on how many tables that we would have. I think we would only get 8 tables. Compromise was like, hey, we have a room downstairs you guys can move into. with 20 tables. And I'm like, boom, sold. We're going to take that. That way we can have more players. Being downstairs meant we didn't have the convenience of being able to bring our stuff in directly, like from the street into the room. We had to play some elevator tag. We had to play some escalator, carousel ride. And where we were at was kind of like smack dab in the dealer's room, which was cool because we got a lot of foot traffic, but it made us a little hard to find the first day for a couple folks. And then we, being downstairs, we shared the same space as the 40K amphitheater room. So Wednesday, Andy and I got down to DC a little bit later. Wednesday afternoons, typically when we set up. So we're a few hours behind schedule, starting to set up our room, doing our business. And someone comes in and is like, hey, GW is getting ready to do their reveal. You either need to leave, go to the reveal, leave, or you're going to be like locked in your room during the thing. And we're like, okay. One, I don't care about your stupid game. Two, I have work to do. So long story short, we ended up getting kicked out of our space for a couple hours while they set up.
Yeah, which is a little aggravating, just because we hadn't meant to get down there that late. It just didn't work out for us to get in early on Wednesday. Thankfully, David and Dan had already brought some stuff and were able to start setting up before we got there. So we ended up catching up later Wednesday night, but it would have been nice to be done by then.
We linked up with some other players. There was a group out of Florida that was there. So we ended up grabbing a drink and some food with them while we were waiting to get access to our space again. And people came down and helped us set up, which really helped. But it made our night go a little bit longer than expected, unfortunately. But the help was really appreciated. So that was different. Breakdown on the way out, again, being downstairs means now we are dealing with elevator space with not just the 40K crowd, the attendees, but also the vendors.
All the vendors. It was the wait for the elevators on Sundays was like a half an hour. It was rough. Like, it was real bad.
I was gonna say, I mean, we had the similar plan, right? So Saturday night, because Sunday was just Masters and a small steamroller, so we were able to break down half the room, keep 2 rows basically set up, so that helped us position ourselves proactively to break down the rest of the
I think strategically keeping Sunday like a little bit light when it comes to like actual quantity of tournaments going on is nice, so that you can start breaking down as stuff is still going on.
Right.
Because it's not just, I was going to say too, the other thing with Breakout, it was another goal for our team to be able to get our attendees out by between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, maybe 4 at the very, very late. No, everyone was out by 3 because people have flights. DC traffic is insane. So it was important for us to make sure we got people on the road as early as we could. And then same thing for our team, right? We don't want our team members getting stuck in DC traffic on the way out on Sunday after a long weekend.
It's good though that you recognize the needs that are necessary in order to go in, not only looking out for yourself, but looking out for the player experience. And it just seems like we know what went well the first year that we tried to run this. We know what went not so well. And we made the small improvements. If there's nothing else that you wanted to go share, I think it's probably a good time to go and talk about like feedback. So we can maybe talk about the Google form and what you ended up hearing from our players.
Bring up the graphs.
Bring up the graphs. So
look at these pie charts.
Yeah. So first off, I want to thank everybody that responded to the survey and sent us back your feedback. We do take all of this, all the feedback that's given to us, even when we're there, because our goal is always to improve and make things better, right? So overall, it was really positive feedback. Everybody had a good time. Everybody liked the schedule. They liked having multiple events. I think one thing we're going to do differently next year, which will help our team, is we're going to do narrative at night. So we're going to have a morning narrative session, a break in the afternoon, and then we're going to have a nighttime narrative event. So some of the feedback we got was, hey, I really wanted to play on the 5 fingers table. That looks sick, but I was stuck at King of Coin all day. I think Andy, at some point, people like Andy was dead. He and David Lee were just like completely dead after the second iteration. And I had players come to me like, how much money do we have to give Andy to run his narrative again? um so that's something to look forward to. So if you are playing in those tournaments during the day and you want to play on narrative, we will have that for you next year.
Can I ask though, because of the thing, let's kind of talk about the schedule change. Is that we're meeting the needs of the players, and if we have narrative fully at full capacity, would you consider even running it on other days as well if the schedule allows for it? I know we haven't talked about Nova 25, and we have plans to go and say, but if there is a desire, right, would you be open to something like that?
So I would be. It's also dependent on how much space we have. You probably hear this from other TOs, and I will echo this. Tickets is what sells tables in space. I will say that the community has, compared to last year being 23, much better at getting tickets early. That's what secures us the table space. And what we find is, at least for Nova, it's the tournaments that sell out first. So I would say, if I don't know what our table situation is going to be like for next year, right? But yeah, if we have the space and we have the team that's there to be able to support that, of course.
Yeah, when it comes to narrative, I think Saturday is always the best day because it's the day when, whole families are there. You
get
get
like
the
the
more
most amount of
casual people
attendance.
who are just coming for narrative, that kind of stuff. I think if we were to do it on a separate day as well, we would just need a bigger team to do it. That's all.
Well, I mean, like, wasn't the Virginia folks like looking to do another Siege of Scarwall or like something similar to that for the following year?
Yeah, so that was something, another lesson learned slash sustain that we're going to go into next year's planning, is reaching out to your neighboring communities or metas that are in the area. Like, so for us, DC isn't super local; it's a couple hours away. I think same thing with that for with the Virginia crowd, but being able to share that load, like, hey, will you guys run stuff during the day on Friday? We got it at night. And then that gives our team, a couple hours off, or maybe we want to go play Warmachine, right? Like, they have their own narrative they put together. Maybe, Andy, David, and I want to throw some models down on the table. And it kind of helps increase your team. And you can also, it's really good for collaborating on ideas. The Virginia crowd had some really, really great terrain. So if we were struggling in that, they would have been able to help plus up our tables. But yeah, I think that's the plan, is to collaborate with a couple other groups in that area for next year to help facilitate some of this stuff.
Yeah, we
Gotcha.
definitely
And
learned the maximum amount of tables we can cover on terrain that we own, which is a good thing to know for when you're trying
yeah,
to run big events.
how do you decide which feedback you want to implement, which one you consider, and which one do you think is a non-problem? And I'm only just kind of like, I'm spitballing this because it's like, if we're constantly looking to try to make Nova better, right? Well, what do we define as being better? So like, I guess, how do you filter that?
So I think it's important to have an overarching goal or vision. Like, Nova for us, if I were to define it, is a player experience is number one, and we want to offer a diverse menu of things for our players to choose, and we want to make sure that those events are up to a high quality for us. So we want to make sure that the tables are good. We want to make sure things are running on time, things are running smoothly. We're not what do you call it, going to compromise that to I don't know, throw on some extra steamrollers or something our team's not ready to take on.
I mean, from a survey perspective, you're never not going to make everybody happy, but your goal is try to make the majority, like the goal of the survey is to have a majority of people that say, I would prefer this, I would prefer that. And if the overwhelming majority of people is voting for something different than what you did, that's when you have to start considering stuff. Doesn't mean you have to change things, but it means like, okay, there's a big group of people that join our events are pulling us in a direction that maybe we should consider.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I'm bringing it up is that you could be overwhelmed with amount of feedback, and then you're just trying to figure out what's attainable. It's like your SMART goals, right? Like, what am I able to actually put forward effort, or even do a minor improvement to this one area?
Yeah. So some feedback like from 23 we got, let's talk about terrain, right? So the hills that we use in 23, beautiful hills, the models just slide off of them. So that was a feedback that we got. So we're like, okay, even though these hills look great, we can't use them because they're not good for the player experience, right? To get that kind of game. The other thing was limiting things at 3 rounds and having that break in there. That was a question that we asked last year that we implemented for this year.
I think, Paul, the heart of your question is how you ask the questions. Like in the survey, you're looking for specific feedback. Like every question is saying, do you like this or would you prefer this? You're giving them options to figure out what they want, knowing what you can provide. It's not a open-ended like, oh, we're just going to get suggestions out of left field, like that kind of stuff. That's not really what you're looking for with the feedback.
Right, because so then at that point, going back to what Eric was saying, it's like your goal that you have in mind is like your goal is for that player experience. So you're making sure that everything is tailored for that. So is it the player experience for timeliness or competitiveness or casualness or just overall experience? Mm-hmm. But it's good to have that in mind when you are asking those questions. And then, because I know I remember the hills, I like them. It's okay, but I understand people need to make sure that
we have to play the game, Paul.
And that city map, right? Yeah, and that was some other feedback we got last year with those city maps that like the roads were really warped on there, and it was kind of creating this weird optical illusion for people. So we didn't use those mats. That kind of stuff is really good feedback.
No, that's good.
And even with the terrain for this year, we got some. We got some feedback on like the sizes of some terrain, right? So I think we're going to go back and reevaluate maybe some of the pieces that we use might not be appropriate for a steamroller, but might serve better in a narrative setting.
Too
so
big,
all that
Paul.
Stuff is good.
Too big.
I like the big stuff. You can't stop me.
There were quite a few complaints about the lighthouse. That lighthouse was huge.
Oh no, that lighthouse is not supposed to be played with. That's the narrative lighthouse. You shouldn't play with that one for steamroller.
Okay, that as you print bigger things than that.
Well.
But yeah, so every convention's gonna have its own, I don't want to say vibe, but like it's gonna have its own thing or like aura about it. So like some conventions, it's like, oh, it's gonna be tournaments from sun up to sundown. You're not gonna get a chance to go. And some people really like that. They want those back-to-back games. I think a big learning observation thing for me was the first Nova that we attended together in 22. And this is this isn't a gig at that scheduler or the team that ran it before, but like they had the IG qualifier and there wasn't really anything alternative at the same time. So I would see players that were trying to get back into the game or didn't necessarily, they were more casual. That was the only thing. And they were just getting tabled immediately.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. These were like Mark 1 players who were trying to get back in Mark 3. And they
heard about
were
the
just
Mark 4 announcement.
And it's like, you're not there. Yeah, they're just getting absolutely wrecked at these tables. And it's like, that's not fun. And I would see them, pick up their models and drop after the first round. And
yeah, the other thing I remember about our first Nova was the Sunday events went on pretty long and people had to just leave because their flights were happening. So like there were people that were just like mid-tournament, they were just like, I guess I gotta go.
Yeah, so having a like a schedule that like making sure that we're done our daytime events at like this is our cutoff, that kind of stuff, that's important.
Yeah, I like your idea of starting early on Sunday so we can get cracking on breaking down and getting everybody out of there.
Yeah.
So I guess like what we can boil this down to is that whenever you're running these events, even if it's like a local steamroller, is that you want to go and figure out what these improvements can be.
We just have to figure out like what your vibe wants to be. Do you want to?
Well, I mean, like you have to have like your goal in mind. You have to figure out what is your end state, right? Like what do we want this to end up looking like? And then you're just constantly getting like your finger on the pulse and seeing if it's moving in that direction, or if it doesn't really or if it can't move in that direction, you have to go and pivot and try to go somewhere else with it.
Well, yeah, if you're driving people away with what you want to do, you have to,
Mm-hmm.
you have to figure out how to change that works,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we had like the Google form that you got. Your benefits is that the people that are there, it gives you. Personally, I like it because it gives you actual like computational data, so you actually get like percentages. It breaks that down. You can get like real time feedback where people can just kind of say like, hey, here's the suggestion for like the following year. But I would recommend, if like anything, is always like making sure that you like write your stuff down. Not to say that I think we're ever going to go forget it, because like I think we remember like what things we did that sang, or what things that we did that were very, very well, and we just continuously implemented that for 24, and we're going to be implementing it for 25. But like even the small things that we may not have considered in the moment, to actually be able to make sure like, oh yeah, that was actually an issue, so let's not make sure like that's.
Yeah, and even just talking with other organizers too. It's like I remember talking to Damon after Siege, and we get independent feedback from our events because we're different locations, different groups of people. So it's that's also really critical, is talking to other organizers has helped me out a whole lot, because there are things that might be seen across the country I just don't see here, that we don't take into consideration. Then when it comes up, it's like, oh, this is what this group did. So you're not caught off guard as much.
I gotcha. And then I guess I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit and just talk about like feedback for like players and such, because I know like even if like you're trying like to make improvements or trying to make changes and stuff, is I guess I wanted to ask is like, have you ever found that you would be given, or you would give feedback, right? Like you would evaluate feedback as being necessary, and it was either not received well or not implemented well by like a player who's like looking to try to get better at their game or something.
I mean, every game is sort of a feedback loop, right? I mean, almost every game that you play, even casually, you sit around the table, you have a conversation about what happened at that table, what different things could have happened at that table that did or didn't happen, or dice could have been better, you could have made a different move, like that kind of stuff. And that kind of gets two people opening up to sort of, have a better game next time if they were to play that same exact game again. Like that's the kind of feedback that I see player to player at a high level.
I guess, and that's at a high level, and I'll speak to myself at this point. I appreciate the high level play, and I feel like if someone were to offer feedback, like I'll listen to it and I'll appreciate it, but I don't play the game as much anymore to be able to do these high level plays. So I'm 2 months at a time or something like that. I don't remember everything that happened from my previous game, and really all I'm doing is just like trying to remember like my stats on my models at that point.
I think for or just a player, or like even with a coworker, I think like coachability is important. So being able to receive the feedback and think about and consider, not just shut yourself off. So something I've been working on for my son, the way I approach either going to a steamroller or open play night, or whatever, going to a convention, is always coming to the table with humility, because anything can happen, right? Like I'd never walk up to a table thinking, oh, this is going to be a slam dunk, right? Dice happen. You don't know what the terrain's going to be.
I mean, you also have to leave the table with humility too, where it's
Hmm.
it's one of those things where after a hard loss, it's really easy to just go into your little dice sucked this game, everything was bad. I'm just and you're not learning anything from that game if you have that mentality if after a loss. It's really easy to just go into your feelings after a loss.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think it's also like you're thinking about the mindset as well. So what mindset are you bringing to the table? If you are looking at that like, I am going to make that improvement versus I'm just going to be stuck as well.
Yeah, you always want to learn. You always want to learn something too. Like regardless, even if it's training at work or like a class I have to go to, it's I've same EMT paramedic refresher I've been going to the past 20 years. I'm going to learn something from that course every time I go.
All right. I think we've hit feedback enough. Do we want to go ahead and just finish this off and talk about what we have plans for Nova 25?
Yeah, the future.
The coming attractions.
Dun,
All right. I guess I can start with a few things. So you're going to hear it here first, everybody. All right. King of Coin is coming off of Nova.
The king is dead.
The king is dead. No more King of Coin, no more Prince of Pence at Nova. I've been the TO for that the past 2 years. I am ready to pass the mantle for that if somebody else would like to run it. But I have no plans of continuing King of Coin at Nova for next year. So what does that mean? What's going to happen on Saturday? Ooh. Well, we got something fun cooking up. So some other feedback we got from last year's survey and this year's is the team event. The people are looking for the return of the Nova team event. So I was talking with Tyrants on the Field. Shout out to him. Off to the side, he runs our North American War Table League, the NARL, on our Discord. And I was messaging him. I'm like, hey, we're thinking of reintroducing the team event on Nova. What if we do some kind of collaboration where we have a live person null event at Nova? Because we were talking about doing custom pins for people that play in the league, and we are going to bring the null team event to Nova next year. So you guys might have seen the cute little narwhal with the 4. That is our mascot, and if you come to Nova next year and you actually participate in the league, you don't have to play once in the whole year. You'll get a unique Gnarl swag, but you have to come to Nova to claim that.
His name's Null the Narwhal.
Yeah, he's really cute. Brian Meyer, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. We met him at the Siege Invitational earlier this year, he and his family, and he's a tattoo artist. And we were talking, and then I messaged him on Facebook. I was like, hey, do you do commission art? We're looking at getting like a steampunk narwhal. Is this something you'd be interested in? And he came up with this really kick-ass concept, and I think we have a picture of it on our Facebook page and a little video on our YouTube channel if you wanna check out the new mascot. So that's a big announcement we're doing next year. We already talked about the narrative schedule, and then I guess the last thing for tournaments, I'll hold narrative off for you guys. Is doing smaller point games in addition to the 100-point steamrollers for next year. So Warmachine, I don't know if anyone's been playing the beta test or the beta document for that. Those scenarios are a blast and a ton of fun to play. So kudos to the team that's been working on that. And then Steamforged Games had said earlier that they're looking at doing 50 and 75 point format scenarios. So I'm curious to see what that's going to look like in January. But we want to have smaller point games as a format for Nova next year.
We just have to figure out where to fit them. That's all.
Yep. It's gotta fit. So those are the tournaments. And how about narratives? Anything going on with narrative next year?
We are brainstorming some fun stuff for narrative.
I'm going to go and say this with narrative, with how all the tables were for the first year, and then we had 5 fingers. It feels like the Marvel like movie issue where it's like, okay, we need more blam and spectacle. So I'm just grateful that Andy just says, no, Paul, we don't need that. It's okay. Like just dial it down a little bit. It's okay.
He does that to me too in our marriage. It's good. Like I need that balance, you guys. I would just.
It's the Waisakis. They cannot help themselves.
You know what? Like 5 fingers would have been a whole ship battle. Like it would have been Pirates of the Caribbean ship battle.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is not going to work.
And it would not have functioned, Paul. Everyone would have been really confused walking away from the table going, what happened?
Did we play Warmachine? What is this?
Where are my models? They're buried under boats.
No, Andy and I have been brainstorming. We have a really, really, really cool idea. We have a lot of help getting in here. We're kind of like just putting the pieces together right now, but I think we have a very solid concept. And
yeah, the only spoiler that I'll give right now is if you like the more nature-focused stuff in Warmachine, you might enjoy our new environment.
It's gonna be pretty. I'm looking forward to making pretty stuff. Like getting out of like the whole like city things. Like after like making so many like houses, I'm like good for doing something a little bit different now. But yeah, so we can probably give like pictures or whatever when we end up getting around to that. All right, well that is going to go ahead and close out this episode. So we will go ahead and do our little closing remarks right now. It was great having you two on and talking shop about Nova. Erica, I'm very like proud that that it's going as well as it did. I'm happy that you are so great at being able to organize everything and to make it go off without a hitch as much as it does. So, great job on that. Andy, thank you for, being able to support her and running narrative when I wasn't able to go there.
I fetch coffee.
You fetch coffee.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Paul. It's very sweet. It's definitely a team collaborative effort. And just very fortunate to have amazing humans that come out and help. But it's couldn't do it alone. So thank you, everybody who spent their time and sanity with us for the weekend. I also wanted to thank Steamforge Games for sending us amazing prizes. That was some other feedback that greatly improved from the year before. The prize support was phenomenal. I want to thank the organizers at Nova. It's really great working for that team. Any issue that we had, anything we could have ever wanted, they gave to us. They're so professional.
Oh yeah, the prize support they got, the Nova guys got us was really cool
Everything.
too. I love
Yeah.
those base inserts are really nice.
Yeah. And the mascot this year, that fire salamander thing, was sick.
Oh, the coin, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody, really from the bottom of my heart on behalf of my team. Thank you, and we're so excited to come back next year.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for everybody who helped out and moved a mat or put away a tree or packed a car and shipped themselves from wherever they're coming from to DC. It's every little bit helps because anything I've realized is if you're trying to set up 40 tables in a room, it's like it'll take hours and hours and hours. But if you have just an extra couple hands, it cuts that time really, really down. So thanks everybody for coming.
That's good. All right, cool. Well, from all of us here in Delaware, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.